So, hi, this is Michelle, and this is the next episode of Not a Standard. So, today we have a special guest who I've been connected with for a year now on social media, and he's truly been a friend throughout the process of starting a podcast. His name is Shawn Anthony, and he is a talent manager, the founder of Pod Pro Max, and the voice behind the acclaimed Schools Over Now What podcast. He brings a wealth of wisdom and a roster of high caliber guests who have answered the resounding question we all face: school's over, now what? So, without further ado, I'd like to officially welcome Shawn to the podcast.
Hey, listen, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited that you are making this thing happen. So let's definitely get something to the audience today.
Okay. All right, I'm just going to dive right into my questions then. So, if you don't mind sharing, can you tell a little bit about your story and when you knew that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur at the age of 14. I got very lucky. My brother went off to this place called college. He became a big nightlife party promoter. And at 14, I was exposed to all of that. So at 14, I was in the club. I was standing on couches, partying with hip hop artists like Rick Ross, Young Jeezy. But what I really gained from that experience was understanding, like, how is he navigating? How is he moving? And I became big nightlife party promoter myself. And I threw my first party at 14. And at 14, Michelle, I made at 14 $6,000.
Wow.
And it was a high school graduation party. That's the crazy thing, right? Like, can you imagine like a 14-year-old now trying to get 18-year-olds convinced to hang out with them? I was that guy. And it turned into a big thing of becoming really known for marketing. And I went off to college, became a big nightlife party promoter. I exceeded. Everyone graduated. Then I said, yo, how can I transfer these skills? And I went corporate. And when I went corporate, I got promoted like it was nothing. I got promoted like 6 times in 4 years. And I stumbled across podcasting during one of those job promotions that completely changed my life. And that's how I created all this amazing stuff, from Schools Over Now What podcast and now Pod Pro Max.
Yeah, but why a podcast? Because you could have did anything.
Yeah, absolutely. What happened was, in the jobs that I was doing, I was a brand manager for large companies like Target, Macy's, and Belk. And while I was standing and literally giving presentations in front of CEOs, I noticed how they were like paying attention to how I was talking. They were paying attention to how I was controlling the room. And a lot of people used to compliment me on my voice. And I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And then because I got promoted so much, I stumbled across that weird purple looking app. And I stumbled across it as I was driving 6 hours. I was, promoted. I had to drive 6 hours for 6 months. So it was 3 hours from North Carolina to VA, and then 3 hours back from Virginia to North Carolina. And while I was doing that, I stumbled across this app. I'm listening to guys like Ed Mylett, Evan Carmichael, Chris Drummondpath. These guys are amazing. And I say these names respectfully because they all have been on my show. But I understood really quickly that they didn't look like me. They didn't talk like me. And there was a gap, and there was an opportunity. So in 2018, we launched Schools Over Now What podcast.
Yeah, I love that. I love podcasts. Like, I love just listening to them. I feel like it's unlike social media where you go on and you compare yourself to everyone else.
Facts.
You actually get to learn. So it's pretty incredible that you started a podcast. But you could have started a podcast in like anything, in health, in just any field. So why Schools Out Now What?
Yeah, what's so crazy about it is I felt guilty. So here I was, I figured out life. I had figured out how to take a skill set, how to turn that skill set to an actual corporate job, get more income than a lot of my peers. And I felt guilty watching me flourish and them not having answers. So I said, okay, what actually sticks to me? That's a mission. I think anybody can have a podcast, but when you attach it to a mission, you change the game. But I wanted to get advice from other people who are way far ahead, right? I think the hardest thing about doing anything is to move forward knowing that you're young, successful, and knowing, all right, how can I get, people who are much further than me to give the game back, right, to my people and to my peers. And I said, okay, I'm gonna make them all answer a question we all still trying to figure out. And I think everyone listening to this show has asked themselves at some point, if they haven't already, and that school's over, now what, right? Like, what do I do and how do I move forward?
Yeah, I feel like even as a college graduate, I was pre-med with biology and nutrition. And it's like I was supposed to go to medical school. And it's like, okay, so what do I do now? And somehow I ended up on social media and onto this. And I feel like every single college graduate has no idea what they're doing. Like 9 out of 10.
Listen, none of them. I think what the only thing that can move you forward is experiences, right?
Hmm.
So I think the more experiences and the more environments you place yourself in, the higher the chances are that you'll be successful.
Yeah, totally agree. And I feel like I learned more in the last 10 years than I have throughout school. So,
Facts.
yeah, it's just the way that it is. So, I'm going to switch a little bit because I saw a post of yours that stated you keep procrastinating and you'll find yourself regretting a life you could have lived. And it stuck out to me. Was there a point in your life where you procrastinated in starting a podcast?
I would say not procrastinating and starting it, but procrastination, absolutely. I think
Hmm.
procrastination is something we all deal with and continue to deal with daily because a lot of us know exactly what to do, but are we going to be actionable? Mel Robbins, she's known for having this 5 second rule where she's like, all right, cool.
Hmm.
Have I made a decision and being actionable upon it? I think that's the case with a lot of us, right? It is understanding. I think on the other side of that is what can happen if you do what you're holding off, and I think that'll change your life.
So then what do you think would be your greatest struggle as a podcaster? Like, because I know in an
Yeah.
article that I read about you, you said self-doubt.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I
Yeah.
think I think self doubt in 2018 was different than the self doubt now in
Mhm.
2023. So, like in 2018, nobody was doing podcasting like that. In
Yeah.
fact, I tell you all the time, podcasting in 2018 felt kind of corny. It felt kind of lame because everyone was like, "What are you doing?" But now it's this new phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is the key. Whenever you are someone that sees things, and fortunately for me, since the age of 14, I've always kind of seen what's about to be hot before it's hot, right? And that comes back to like that marketing experiences. But I
Yeah.
think one thing with not only just having self doubt with podcasting is now in 2023 to bring it all back together, there's so many other different people that you can be comparing yourself to. But I
Hmm.
think for those that are listening who are holding themselves back, who have self doubt, who are like, you know what, I'm not sure if I should even do this. The thing is, you should, because you're going to connect with others way harder than I would connect, way harder than you would connect, because somebody
Hmm.
is waiting for you and your uniqueness, and that's something that only you can give.
Yeah, I was sharing with my boyfriend the other day. Like, I have so much anxiety in doing these, and in a sense, I feel like it disqualifies me. And we were talking in the car, and I'm like, but I guess that kind of qualifies me because it shows people that have anxiety that they can actually do these things and get better. Because I feel like if you
Uh,
don't even start anything, then you just never know.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's also this really unique thing that's happening right now where I think a lot of creators and a lot of people in the podcasting space are moving so fast and showing a different life that they shouldn't. I think the ones that are really accelerate right now is this raw, personal, overcoming, behind the scenes, just true to you. I think that
Hmm.
is what's going to really connect with so many people right now.
Yeah, I think I listened to that podcast. It was The Power of Relatability. It was so good.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, I
was so,
appreciate
so
that.
good.
Yeah, facts. I think because relatability is key, right? We
Yeah.
all want the progress, but I think if we continue to talk to that person that's just like literally the version or the beginning version of us, I think that's how community is.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, if I can ask, like, what have been some of your failures?
Yeah, I think we all have had failures. It's just like granular, right? Like
Hmm.
what have been some of your failures in life? I think when it comes to failures, here's a book I think everyone should read before they become an entrepreneur. A book that everyone should read is called Profit First. If I had read Profit First before I made a single dollar as an entrepreneur, I probably would be a multimillionaire. Here's the thing with Profit First, and the thing I think will help a lot of entrepreneurs right now is that you're getting money, you're getting expenses, like you're getting these things, but are you allocating it in the right way and not just spending it all? Right.
Hmm.
I think really truly understanding what entrepreneurship is, that is going to be a game changer for you whenever you make that step and you become something full time.
Yeah, like I totally, yeah, I want to read that book because I've never actually read it. And it seems really awesome. I feel like a lot of people quit as entrepreneurs because it's hard before it gets easy.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what's so interesting as well? I think a lot of times people develop the wrong habits. There's this book by James Clear, The Atomic Habits, that I think
Hmm.
everyone should also read. Is that once you figure out what your ideal day is, right? Let's say you have an amazing day. You're like, yo, I wish I could duplicate this day. I think what's important is to write down everything that went right. Right. If you write down everything that went right, you're now looking at a system, right? Could this be the new system that you put in place every single day that you are working. And that's how you have gradually compound effect and you start having really big moves and start making a really big impact.
Yeah, definitely. So now that you put in the work and you are, I guess you made it essentially, like what does your life look like today?
Oh, listen, when it comes to making it, I think every day we're trying to make it even further, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, what that is everything I'm telling you is things that I've kind of applied in my life. So I figured out, okay, all right, what is the most maximized data I have? A lot of things that happen for me, comes through connections, come through networking. So setting out
Hmm.
like a weekly, daily plan and actually color coding my calendar has tremendously helped me, right? So I know, okay, beginning of my day is all for me. So that means, all right, wake up, morning routine. Next step after morning routine is I actually work out and spend time in nature for an hour. Right. So be
Love that.
surprising. Like, in order for you to really impact other people, you have to make sure that yourself is taken care of. Then
Hmm.
I'm able to kind of like start like the gradual routine of, working, connecting with clients, looking for opportunities, looking for speaking gigs, looking for podcasts to place people on. All that is a part of what I do now with Pod Pro Max.
Yeah, I love what you said about placing your health like first because that's how I feel.
Mm.
And I tell my boyfriend that all the time. I'm like, my health comes first and then just everything else comes into place. Because if you don't have your health, like you can't like enjoy wealth and you can't really help someone else.
Absolutely.
So,
And the thing is, you can really see where people's priorities are by seeing how much they take care of themselves. And I think you're
hmm,
speaking to that, right? And the
yeah.
moment you continue to do that, that's how you'll gradually start making a bigger impact.
Yeah, and like you said, it's like entrepreneurship is so like hard and just mentally hard. And I
Yeah.
feel like just taking care of yourself and having those like pillars for health is just like
You know
utmost
what?
important.
You know why it's mentally hard though? One of the reasons why I think entrepreneurship is mentally hard is because a lot of us that are doing entrepreneurship, we're the first ones in our family
Hmm.
to say, you know what? I'm about to bet on
Yeah.
me. And betting on you looks a lot different than the organized, regular, everyday work environment. And betting on
Hmm.
you is hard to explain to people who want to bet on themselves, but who haven't. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are mentally battling not being able to talk to people about certain situations, not being able to talk to people that understand exactly what they're doing. And when that happens, I say the biggest thing that can absolutely help you is to find out, okay, what are you trying to figure out? And then
Hmm.
actually looking it up because somebody's figured it out. And if that doesn't work, the next thing you need to look at is putting yourself in environments where other entrepreneurs are, whether that's networking conferences, whether that is, saying, hey, look, you can work remotely at this location, or putting yourself in a different environment that allows for you to see things and do different things that will impact your business.
Yeah, I would also add that the unknown is so hard. Like you don't
Huh.
know if you're gonna make it, and then you have your family members saying like, "What the heck are you doing? Like, why are you starting a podcast? Why are you doing this? Like, it's just a stupid idea." And I feel
Mhm.
like when you allow that to get in your head, like I feel like you set yourself up for failure. Like you have to believe in yourself.
Yeah, you got to quiet the noise too, right? The naysayers, right? So maybe if you're dealing with those type of people, maybe you have to limit their
Hmm.
activity and interactions, with you, because if you have the right mindset, if you put the right mindset around the right people, it'll flourish.
Hmm. Yeah, and I can only imagine like what your family said when you decided to start a podcast. And now I'm just
Mhm.
like kind of curious after you interviewed so many guests who are
Mhm.
extremely well known, like has their perception of you like changed? Like they're like, "Oh my god, like you've accomplished so much. You've done
Yeah,
so much."
yeah, I would say the perception. I think when you're, especially for me, like, and I can only speak to like me. I've always kind of went against the grain. I think I was more surprised that you actually did it. It's probably
Mhm.
the thing, right? So not a more of a surprise of, okay, all right, now you're doing this podcast, you're interviewing these amazing people, you're doing keynotes, you're teaching people across the world. I don't think that was as surprising. I think what it was as surprising is saying, you know what, I'm gonna go all in on this, right?
Mhm.
One of my mentors is Beyonce's dad, Matthew Knowles, and I had a conversation
That's
with
cool.
him, and he said two things that are really impactful. One, hey Shawn, this is bigger than podcasting, what you're doing. And then two, on
Mhm.
top of that, he said to me, you're dealing with first generation like entrepreneurship, like you're dealing with first generation money when you're the first person in your family to do something different, it's going to look completely wild to a lot of people. But you have to look at it as the new norm, knowing that, hey, you're building a legacy and you're inspiring the lives even after you who carry your last name.
Yeah, I remember when I like first connected with you and I was looking through your Instagram and I'm like, oh my God, he interviewed Ed Mylett, he interviewed
Mhm,
Grant Cardone. It's like,
mhm.
wow, this guy is actually doing so much like good in the world. And I'm just curious, like, how did you network with so many of these people?
Yeah, you know what's crazy is that I interviewed all those guys while I still had a job. You know, I think networking is you have to learn how to network up, right? So many people are like, "Yo, I want to go to Ed." It's not going to happen. Oh, I want to go to
Mm-hmm.
Grant. Probably not going to happen. I think what has to happen is you have to network so much that by the time they hear your name, it becomes, of course, I want to do this. You know, I remember when I interviewed Ed Mylett, and Ed Mylett he used to have his show at his house. You know, now
Mm-hmm.
he's at Sirius Radio. But I'm telling you, when he had the show at his house, it was something different, something different,
Mm-hmm.
definitely special there. And I remember interviewing him in Laguna Beach in his home. And we're going, he's like, hey, what do you want to do this interview at? And I was like, yo, I want to do this interview where I've seen everybody. Yo, take me to those couches where everybody's been at. And so like we're going to those couches. And if you're a fan of him, you kind of know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We're going down these stairs. And as we're going down these stairs, he looked back at me and he's like, yo, listen, man, I like your show, you know, because we've interviewed so many of the same people. And so he's like, oh, you interviewed Gerard Adams, you interviewed Jasmine Star, you interviewed Amy Porterfield. He just knew everything.
Yep.
And it was so funny to me because I think a lot of people go after the big names, not realizing the big name will say yes to you if they have familiarity with who you've already worked with. And I think that
Yeah.
getting that cosign, having so many of those people definitely helped, you know, and like
Yep.
same way with Grant Cardone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So where did you start out then? Like, who did you interview first, or
Yeah, listen,
how did you
the
get in?
first the first interview I ever did, I did the first three interviews I ever did, I was going to people who I knew that were in college that had graduated college and were doing
Mm-hmm.
something amazing, right? So it was like the cool DJ in college, the girl who started her track, who went from track to start her own fitness business, you know, those type of people. And then something hit me and said, "Yo, you got to reach harder. You got to go further than this." And in
Mm-hmm.
episode 7, I was watching a show called New York $1 Million Listing. And there was a guy who was the star of this show, Ryan Serhant. I'm a big fan of the guy. And I noticed he was doing a book. He had a book that he was about to release, his first time being an author. And I said, hey, listen, I have a show. This is the mission of the show. And I'd love for you to be a guest. And he said yes. And that started everything. So we did this interview. It was episode 7 with Ryan Serhant. And we did this interview. And he at the time was working on this vlog on YouTube. His vlog was becoming bigger than the show, right? So if you're a fan when it comes to YouTube, a lot of people watch YouTube channels. They want to know more about specific characters of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And while he's doing this interview, this is back in 2018. So this
Wow.
wasn't a time where people were like, hey, let's sit down in studio. They weren't even on that yet.
Mm-hmm.
The main goal was to have a good interview, have a good audio conversation, and distribute it across multiple platforms and grow the brand. And so as we're doing the interview, he has his phone on speakerphone, right? This is how different it was. So I had all these devices that were recording the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and he's doing it. And while he's doing it, people are asking in the YouTube video, they're like, yo, who are you talking to? Who are you giving this inspiration to? Yo, where can we listen to more of this? And you can hear my voice and his voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I commented under the YouTube video and I said, hey guys, you enjoyed this interview. You can check out this full interview here. Click the link. And Ryan pinned a comment. I woke up the next day and the podcast had over 75,000 downloads, right?
Wow.
So it's all about shooting that shot. But when that happened in episode 7, then it becomes a domino effect. Then it's like
Yeah.
Ryan Serhant, Mikey Taylor, Chris Drummond-Path, and then the list just goes on.
Yep. Sometimes you just got to do one more, and that one more
Yeah,
changes everything, right?
absolutely. You got one more, and then being bold enough to take a shot, right? You got to be bold
Mm-hmm.
enough to realize that, hey, listen, I got something to say, and I want to bring it to life with you.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So, were you nervous at all doing those?
Yeah, I think obviously I think here's the thing about nervous. You have to find some type of when it comes to interviewing and interviewing style. I always say you have to find some way to start the conversation off like an icebreaker. And so I
Mm-hmm.
had done so much research on Ryan Serhant, and I realized when he was his most comfortable. And so before the interview started, I said, "Hey, listen, I don't want the Ryan Serhant in a suit." And I said this Ryan was recording. You can still hear it to this day. I said, I do
Mm-hmm.
not want to talk to the Ryan Serhant wearing a suit selling houses on Bravo. I want the Ryan Serhant that's on his couch with a white t-shirt eating Oreo ice cream. And you can hear his voice change. You can hear his voice change. It's like all of the defense came down. He gave me one of his best interviews. And he still, to this day, uses little snippets from that interview in casual conversations. That's how impactful it was.
That is so cool. That is awesome. So you really have to prepare as an entrepreneur before you do anything.
Absolutely. And I think prepared is important, but also remembering, who was like the younger, or who was the, the beginning version of you, right? And speak to that person, and don't be afraid if it feels like you're talking to that one person, give that one person a name, and that one person in that name is going to gradually become a community.
Yeah, I would say also not putting them on a pedestal as well. Just really realizing that they're human beings and they like being treated like normal human beings, not perfect individuals. I feel like that puts so much pressure on other people.
100% agree with that. 100% agree.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I am curious, if you could go back 10 to 15 years from now and tell yourself anything, what would you tell yourself and why?
It's interesting. I think there's a couple things you can tell yourself, right? I would say to the person who is in school right now, right? Because I go back 10 to 15 years, I'm in school, right? Yeah. The person that's in school, I would say, hey, listen, like whatever that's on your mind right now, it's not even going to matter 10 or 15 years from now. The people that are causing you stress right now, you're not even going to think about them 10 or 15 years from now. You might never even talk to them again. I think what can you pick up? I would tell my younger self, what could you pick up from every conversation, from every interaction, almost and turn into a skill set that can carry you through life? And I think that is the key, right? And what you're going through right now, a lot of times it doesn't make sense, but it will make sense later. That job promotion that you don't get, it's going to make sense later, right? That girlfriend that didn't work out, it's going to make sense later. Right? That situation that you wish your homeboy helped you out with, but he didn't, it's going to make sense. And I think you just have to stay positive and keep moving forward.
Yeah, like you said, it doesn't make sense in the time, but then it starts making sense later on. Funny story, I actually went to a fitness event yesterday, and I was telling my boyfriend, like, I don't know if I'm capable of doing this. I don't know if I'm capable of doing this. And I ended up going, and I was more capable than I thought I was. And I feel like it's like part of going through anorexia and having that resilience that really like made me just determined to finish this workout as tough as it was. I feel like it made me into who I am today. And I feel like you could probably relate.
Oh, absolutely. And I think at the same time, never forget what it was like, going through that, right? Because like your story and what you have to give to the world is something unique and different. And I think you should talk about it more, right? You should talk about it more, and even talk about the feelings that you had, and even go even deeper, talk about even some of those mental feelings that you had, right? And that is going to be probably some of the most relatable content, and it's going to probably have so many people inspired.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just getting comfortable enough to share all of that side of me, right?
For sure. And then you know what I found out is, if that's the case, like, you shouldn't produce content unless your mind is at the comfortable state before you press that record button. Right? Sometimes we get into our heads, and the worst type of content to create is that forcible content, when it's like, I gotta put something out there, versus, I'm feeling like doing something right now. That is a different type of vibe. Yeah. And I'm finding out this thing with social media, where so many people used to say, hey, look, post every single day, blah, blah, blah. And I'll be honest with you, I think that's important in staying top of mind with people, but I don't think it's as impactful, right? I could probably right now, if I really wanted to be really intentional, instead of posting even 5 times a week, I could be really, really intentional and say, you know what, I'm only going to put my best foot forward and give you 3 posts a week. And those 3 posts are going to reach way more people, because I know exactly what I'm trying to put into it. I think there's this thing now where you can look at social media content almost like an art form, but don't overcomplicate the process and think it has to be perfect. It could be the behind the scenes. It could be you preparing for this interview. It could be you saying, all right, this is my new health routine coming through what I came from. This is what I used to do. This is what I'm doing today, right? Just being more impactful and intentional, I think, will produce the highest results.
Yeah, I remember when I used to spend like hours writing a post for social media, and I was like, oh, I got to get this out and make it perfect. And now just like, I'm going to put it out there imperfectly perfect, and like the right kind of audience will find me.
Listen, not just that, right? Listen, it could be even misspelling. Here's the thing about Threads that had the world so excited about Threads. I feel like it's kind of calmed down now. What had the world so excited about Threads is people felt like, hey, I could actually say what I want to say here genuinely and misspelled stuff, but you
Mm-hmm.
get the point and it's going to connect more, right? And that just shows you just the value of that type of content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think I actually said that to my boyfriend. I was like, I like this because I don't have to
Mhm.
worry about it being perfect. Just like my stories, it's like, whatever, like nobody
Facts,
cares.
facts,
Nobody
facts.
really cares.
100% agree with that.
Yeah. So, one of the things about this podcast is being your best self and owning who you are. So, what are a few things that make you unique or not a standard?
Yeah, I mean, well, a few things that make me unique just in life is the ability to connect with people and meet them where they are, and the ability to listen to them and kind of figure out, okay, I see this as a possibility for you, and then making it happen. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a gift and that's a skill set. And I think that gift and skill set, if you struggle with that, is all right. Where can you tap into finding yours? And for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was those job reviews. I got promoted so much. The only time I heard about, hey, look, you're doing really good at this, and maybe if you did that, or hey, look, this is your strong skill set. It was job reviews. And sometimes
Yeah.
those job reviews shocked me, right? I would sit down and it would be exceed expectations for the whole year, and then it'd be the main thing they wrote down was your connection skills are crazy, the ability to collaborate with others, and then it hit me like, you know what? I'm about to just 10x that, right?
Yeah.
And focus on that and see where life takes me, And I think right now, if you're someone who's struggling with identifying your skill set, it might be you tapping into something as simple as that to realizing your power and what you're capable of.
Yeah, I feel like one thing that stuck out to me about you when we connected is just like how genuine and authentic you were. Like I feel like there were so many DMs between us, and I feel like there's so much power in just like talking to a person and
Yep.
encouraging them and motivating them. And I feel like that's something you did for me. So I want to say thank you for that.
Oh, likewise, and I appreciate that. I think what it shows is like that genuine care for a person versus being like, "Hey, yo, can you do this? Yo, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do that?" Or you like my post.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you'll see people with the most terriblest engagement
Mm-hmm.
strategies asking you literally, "Yo, just go like this post," and da da da, and you're like, "Hey, man, I don't know nothing about you, right?" Or
Yeah.
or the spammy like DMs was like, "Yo, check out my music,"
Yeah.
I don't even know if I like that genre, right? I think it's important to make sure that we are putting forth our best effort and showing that we care for others. And I'm glad I was able to do that for you.
Yeah, I definitely value just like the connections more so than the likes. And I think
Fact,
that's something that really had to shift, I think, in my life.
facts, because you can get caught up on that, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
words, and it's almost like love languages, right? Like words of affirmation for a lot of people, like that's their thing, just in life. They know, hey, look, I'm headed on the right direction, and somebody believes in me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like, in all honesty, like that saved my life, even just on Instagram, like sharing my story of
Hmm.
overcoming anorexia. There were a lot of people that supported me. I
Hmm.
didn't like, I had 70 followers, and people were like, come on, girl, you got this. Like, I believe in you. And I feel like their belief in me really helped me until I could believe in myself.
Facts, because you're
So,
doing it the right
yeah.
way, and you're doing it. Vulnerability. My guy Mario says is vulnerability is the new currency, and that's what people want to see.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. So, where can people go to learn more about you?
Absolutely. Well, you can find me on all platforms at Shawn R Anthony _. You can find the podcast on all podcast platforms and YouTube at Schools Over Now What, and you also can check out what we're building at podpromax.com.
Awesome. So I just wanted to end this interview by thanking you for really being there for me this year and pushing me to come out of hiding into
Yep.
this podcast. It's been one of the most anxiety provoking and uncomfortable things I've done, but also one of the most exciting. And I'm just really honored to have you as a friend. And yeah, honored to have you in my life. I feel like
Yeah.
who you surround yourself with matters a lot.
Facts, it
So
does.
thank you.
And listen, I am really proud of you for one, realizing you have a message, but then two, having the courage to say, you know what, I'm gonna press this button and I'm gonna let the world hear it. And I think for
Mhm.
you, I think you're gonna really feel this momentum and really see a shift by being consistent and showing up. And I'll be back when you get to episode 100. I'll be back.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna screw up a lot of times before I say screw it and do the thing, right?
Oh, listen, you gotta do it. Listen, I've had episodes. I remember a funny story, not even funny, but just shows you even the big guys mess up. When I was with Ed Mylett, he shared a story with me about how he had just interviewed Jennifer Lopez down. He literally pointed. He's like, he was walking on the beach with Jennifer Lopez cameras. It was a camera crew that wasn't his camera crew. He needed an emergency camera crew, and this was a time where like Jennifer Lopez was dating like A-Rod. He said, Shawn, she's telling me stories that are just amazing. She's crying. He gets back home, presses the button, and none of it, no audio, none of it was
Oh
recorded.
no.
Right. So we all go through those things. And for you, my challenge to you is to stay consistent. Understand that when you have any type of difficulty, it's just part of life, and keep moving and keep pushing forward.
Love that. So, with that being said, be sure to share this podcast with friends, hit that subscribe button, and follow Shawn. Until next time, have a great day.